All right, so you're about to see something that most authors never get to see. I'm going to show you how we scaled an author from making $11,000 per month in profit to making $40,000 per month in profit in just 8 months. Not only that, we made it with an author that was seeing a decline for over 2 years, and we've managed to scale a business that was making less and less month over month for the past 2 years, and we managed to almost 4x the profits. And in this case study, I'm basically going to share with you the exact approach that we've used to almost 4x the profits in 8 months, and why this works even in declining markets such as, in this case, paranormal romance. And I'm also going to reveal the metrics that most authors underestimate and how, in this case, it killed the author's profits. All right, so from 2023 all the way to 2025, she went from making $20,000 profit here to making $11,000 in profit. And as you can see, the revenue was declining as well as the ad spend. So she was spending less, and then she was also making less in profit and in revenue. That being said, she was actually launching 3 books per year. So every year she would put out 3 books, and she was very consistent. That being said, her revenue was still going down. So the situation with this client was that when she came to us, she came as a recommendation. And we were very reluctant to take her on because paranormal romance was declining for years. So from 2019 all the way to 2026, you see that the search volume of keywords for paranormal romance is going down quite aggressively. And then we knew that fantasy romance, on the other hand, is actually increasing. So we thought that this is a market shift where readers from fantasy romance move over to paranormal romance, and that's why paranormal romance dies down. But when we actually looked at the numbers, there's still enough search volume for paranormal romance to still grow. So what was her problem? Because she was releasing consistently, she still was in a genre, there was enough demand, and still she was making less and less. So the problem that she had is that she wasn't getting her books in front of enough new readers. So she was getting in front of enough readers that would just kind of keep the business making some profits, but not enough that it would actually grow. So the plan was simple. We just had to increase the number of new readers that were coming in each month, because month on month she was getting less and less, therefore she was making less. So here's the critical part that most authors miss, and the thing is, you can't scale everything. So trying to advertise the wrong series would actually lead you to spending more and making less profit, which is not what you want. You want to spend more and make more profit, and the way to do that is to actually only scale the things that have the capability to be scaled. So our first step was to identify what can actually be scaled, and there's 2 non-negotiable requirements. Number 1, they have to be series with at least 8 to 10 books in that particular series. Why at least 8 to 10? Because we see there's a sweet spot right after 8 books where you can be more aggressive with marketing and still acquire readers. Even, like, you have the room to test things, and even if they don't work out as well in the beginning, you still have the room to scale a bit more aggressive. When the series is too short, then every mistake you do with advertising is basically causing you to make less profit, and it's pretty much eating most of the profit whenever you make a mistake. And then longer series also allow you to get much better returns on your advertising. And then the second requirement was strong read-through. So we want a series that we know that when we bring a reader in, it would actually move on and consume most of the series. Particularly in our case, we're actually looking at, the way we measure read-through is we're looking at the revenue that's being moved from book to book in that series. Some authors look at sales read-through or page read-through. Those are all fine, but in a way, both of those metrics, sales and page reads, still translate into revenue, right? So you make revenue from sales and page reads, and together they make revenue. So that's why we actually look at revenue when we look at read-through, because it's important that the money that the first book makes moves on to the second, to the third, and so on. So particularly, we're looking at a healthy read-through that follows this pattern, which is 60% or more of the book 1 revenue moves over to the second book in the series, 80% or more of the second book in the series moves over for 3, and then from there on, you need 90% of the revenue that would be carried on from book to book to book in the long run. Now, obviously, the biggest drop always happen between book 1 and book 2, and that's particularly normal. That's why we see 60%. If this is lower than 60%, 50 or 40, 40 is super problematic, and that's because you're basically bringing in readers and they're just not continuing to the rest of the series, which makes that series not very profitable to advertise. Low read-through, the same as short series, makes a series unprofitable when advertising. So it's very hard to make this work. Now here's the strategy that we had with her. We basically were advertising the first books in the series. So we would get the readers in, and then we would make a profit from the readers' consumption. So all we had to do is just get more readers into the first book in the series, and then rely on the read-through to basically make the profit. So we analyzed her back catalog against these two requirements, and we found two series. The first one was an 11-book series, which was good, ready to go, good read-through, long, it was fine. The second one, she actually didn't have a long series, but she did have a 4-book series with a 4-book spin-off. And what we did is we actually asked her to merge the series. The reason why we did that is because we know that if there's a series and a spin-off and they're not in the same series on Amazon, the read-through tends to be much lower. As soon as you put them in a series, the read-through actually jumps up. The reason for that is because Amazon would push the readers in with email notification, and also in the back matter they would tell you, continue reading the book in the series, or this is the next book in a series. So they would actually do the work for the readers, and it also seems more natural. They start a series and then they want to finish it, so that just comes more natural. And what we've generally seen is that whenever there's more books in a series, readers continue. If you're just relying on them to make the connection that they should continue, that usually doesn't happen. Now we knew what we needed to scale. The question was, which advertising channels. So since this was paranormal romance, we knew that Facebook is an obvious choice because romance readers are on Facebook. So we went with Facebook. That was something obvious for us. And then the second platform was Amazon DSP lock screen ads. Now, some of you don't know what Amazon DSP lock screen ads are. Some of you might be familiar, but what they are is they're basically full screen ads that appear at the moment someone unlocks their e-reader or Kindle Fire tablet. So it's just one ad and it just pops up before you go ahead and read. The reason why these are so efficient is that, first of all, you're just targeting readers, people that read, right? So this is a reading device. So it's very, very good and very, very targeted. As you can see in these examples, Goodreads. So Amazon actually uses them to promote these pages with promotion. So whenever you go to a page, it's like read, new sales and so on, they actually use the ads to drive people to that page. And there's other people that promote these books or series in this case. So they're very, very efficient. Amazon uses them as well. The reason why they're extremely efficient is that you can actually target people who bought specific books. You can target readers who read specific books through Kindle Unlimited. That means you can target fans of specific authors that are similar to you, and you can also target readers who bought some of your books but not others. So you're not just targeting people that might be interested or have an interest in reading. They're actually people that actually purchase books, right? So this is the thing with DSP, is that with DSP, which stands for Demand Side Platform Ads, you can create pools of readers specific to whoever you want, and then just get your books in front of them, right? Which can be extremely efficient, especially if you know who your potential readers are. Now, the thing is, not everyone has access to DSP ads. They're not available through the Amazon console. They used to be, but they were available without the actual targeting that works, which is this. You used to be able to just target categories or interests, and that was not efficient, so they removed it eventually. And the thing is, you basically can run them through Amazon ads team. So Amazon, they have an ad team that actually runs this, but for very select few authors, and also the barrier is very high, so you have to spend a large amount of money to get access to this. Or you can do it with Amazon Ads verified partners like our agency that has access to set them up as well. And also there's not such a high barrier like you would with Amazon. The reason why these are not available to the public is because they're very heavy on the technical side. So they're very complex to set up, and they operate on the DSP platform, which is very technical heavy, and most authors, they're not very familiar with that, and it's also very hard to kind of get access to it. All right, so let's start with, our process. So first was the Meta ads process. Our goal with Meta was to maximize the chances that when our main campaigns would go live, they would actually work, right? So when we run some ads, we want to make sure that we maximize them and they have the highest likelihood of converting readers. So what we've done is we always start with a creative test, which means we're basically just testing multiple creatives before we launch our campaigns. And that solves two problems. First, you identify very efficient ads, and you always want to run the ones that cost the less to get the readers on the Amazon book page. Obviously, they have to also convert, so that's a very important piece of the puzzle. But in order for them to be efficient is to convert and also have a low cost. So we want kind of that combination. And then the second one, it built a library of winning creatives. So whenever you scale more aggressive, the more you spend, the more creatives you need. So it also solves the problem that we would have to change creatives more often the more we spend. All right, so the first step is the creative test. Here, things are pretty simple. We're basically, every time we start, we test 30 to 50 different images, 30 to 50 different copies, and 30 to 50 different headlines, right? Sounds a lot, but this is super required. We don't use all of them. We just judge the ones that have a low CPC and a high click-through rate. We always do the creative test based on previous creatives that have been proven to sell books. So this is super important. Doesn't matter if you have low CPC and high click-through rate, they also need to convert. So we always do them based on proven creatives that we had in the past. And the second step is to launch the main campaign. So once we know which creatives are good, we launch the main campaigns. And we basically take the best combinations of the creatives and we put them in the main campaign, and we just start scaling. So the way we scale is we launch a campaign, see if that works. If that works, we launch another one. If that works, we launch another one. If one of them doesn't work, we cut it. We launch another one until it works, and we just kind of keep scaling that way. So it's a layer strategy. So we're just stacking campaigns on top. That way we know that every time we launch a campaign, we have an outcome. So we need to spend X amount to make Z amount back. And if that happens, then we continue to scale. The targeting strategy was pretty simple. We actually use interest targeting. So we target things such as paranormal romance authors, fantasy romance authors, and the paranormal romance genre itself. I know people right now, they do broad targeting, and that's fine. We see that both of them work. So actually, the actual targeting is not such a big problem. As long as you have good ads, like both of them work. And the way we kind of use this is we target broad interests that contain our readers, and then we filter further with the ads. So the ads would tell them if, this book is actually for them. So we only get the attention of readers that would be interested in the things that we say in the ad. All right, so then we go to DSP lock screen ads, and the way we do it, just like we would launch a Facebook campaign, then launch another one and another one, that's how we actually layering the DSP lock screen ads as well. So once we know that Meta works, we would go on and add the DSP lock screen ads, right? So because we're adding stuff on top so we can further scale. So the way we launch the Amazon lock screen ads is very similar to the Meta ads process, right? We start with a creative test and then we launch the main campaigns. The reason why we also do a creative test here, even though we have good creatives from Meta, we would take the best creatives and then also do a creative test on the lock screen ad. So we test like 10 different creatives, and then we would only use the best 3. Again, we're trying to maximize the chances of the creatives working and converting, right? But we're always targeting a pool of readers. If the costs are half to get people on the page, as long as the audience is good, if you drop the cost in 2, that means that you're getting twice as many people on the page from an audience that is proven to buy books. So once you have a good audience, it's important that you also lower the costs so you can increase your purchases and maximize the spend that you're spending. Now the targeting on DSP lock screen ads is pretty simple. As I said, we can basically target any fans of a specific readers on Amazon, but here it's super important that we actually target readers of the most active self-published authors. What that means, first of all, is self-published authors that consistently launch new books and run ads. The reason why this is important is because they have the biggest fan bases, right? Because we know that these authors keep their readers engaged, which means they always have active readers that buys new book. And also, they are readers that are primed to buying books from self-published authors. So we are a self-published author, and then we want their readers. So we're only targeting authors that are self-published and they have a bunch of readers that they've also acquired through advertising. So those are the easiest readers to kind of steal in a way. And we do see a big difference between targeting traditionally published authors versus indie authors. Indie authors just convert the better. So if you think about your genre, the biggest self-published authors in your genre, those are the readers that you basically are trying to get over to you. And to find these authors, you basically use on the recommendation page from Amazon. On your page, it tells you who you're similar to other authors. And also on your series page, there's a section which says people that bought this also bought. So you're looking for series that have a lot of reviews. And that's a sign that they've sold a lot of books, meaning they have a big audience. All right, so let's look at the results. So our plan was to increase the number of new readers coming in each month. That meant, investing more in advertising in the first book of the series. So basically more book one royalties equals more new readers entering the series. So the plan was simple. Spend goes up, book one revenue needs to go up. And if that happens, then the series revenue would go up, and that would mean that the profits would go up. So this is how you scale the series. You just have to get more people in the first book, and they will read the rest of the series. So if we look here in this screenshot, we see that we have $500 in book one royalties. Before, there's barely any this is actually the 11 book series. So there's barely any new people coming in. There was a launch here, I think. And then we see that we actually got the book one royalties from 500 to 1.9K and then to 4.2K in royalties. And this is the dashboard from Publisher Champ. And then if you select the series on Publisher Champ, it actually gives you book one royalties and the series revenue. So you can clearly see that there's a direct correlation between book one royalties and series revenue, which also correlates to profit. So we see how the profit basically went up from 2, 3, 6, 8, 7, 10, 12, 15, 16. Then we have Q4 where we lowered the spend a little bit because it was just not the best period to be aggressive with advertising. And then we scaled back in January again. So as you can see, pretty simple, straightforward. The strategy works. Just get more readers in book one goes up, and that's it. So you're only controlling the spend and the book one royalties. The rest of them did just happen naturally. All right, so then we actually did the same thing to the other 8-book series. And as you can see here, I think here she was coming off of a launch. Book one was actually quite high at 2K, and then it came down and it kind of died out. And then we basically scaled it. So we started increasing book one royalties. We spend more. It went up. And you can see 5.5K from 500 again. And then she's making 10K profit, 9K profit, 7K profit, Q4, not necessarily ideal. And then we kind of scaled back in January. So if you see, there's a difference between an 8-book series and an 11-book series. So the most we've made in profit here, even though if you look at advertising, this is more tight. So we're actually spending very similar to what we're making. But if we look at the other series, we're actually spending way more than we're making on book one. Still, we have more profit. So this is what I mean by having a long series. Whenever you have a long series, you can even be less efficient and still make more profit. If we look at the other series, we're actually more efficient, meaning we're spending very close to what we're making in the first book, but still not making as much profit as we are here. So this is what actually allows you to keep spending in the long run. If your series are small, it's very, very hard to scale them because you always need to be conservative and you need to be very efficient with the first book in the series and how much you spend. If the series is longer, you don't have to worry so much and you can be more aggressive with advertising, and also you're going to make more profit. So I guess we can even look here at those two things. So this is when we came in. The thing that I want to show you is, so this is pretty much what you control. Book one royalties and then spend. That's all you control, and then the rest happens on its own. So we just have to control book one royalties and spend. And if we just remove these, so you can see, right? Like we went from making $400 to 4.2 thousand. So that's like 10 times more readers than she was getting here. 10 times per month. And then the same thing applies to this series, which is not as profitable, but still, like it's adding in quite a bit of profit, like 10K per month. And the same thing happened, right? Like we spend more, we make more readers. If she's getting more readers per month, that's fine. Her business grows. All right, so the conclusion. So her business was basically shrinking month over month because she wasn't bringing in enough new readers. So that's the metric. Book one royalties, that's the most important thing. If you spend more, you need to make more book one revenue. That means you're bringing in more readers. And this is the metric that tells you if more readers are coming into your business. And you can measure it daily, monthly, weekly. You can look at it like month on month, you need to be making more. Year on year, you need to be selling more book ones in your series. All right, so here's a big lesson. She had a back catalog that was worth $11,000 in monthly profits, and it was shrinking. 8 months later, the same back catalog was worth $41,000 in profits. The only difference was that she had more readers. So your back catalog is worth whatever you're currently making from it. But if you're not bringing in enough readers, you're basically settling for less than it's actually worth. And even in a declining market like paranormal romance, the right advertising strategy can reverse years of decline. You just need more readers into the first books in your series. So the question is not if the market is declining or shrinking. The question is, are you getting your books in front of enough new readers? Now, if you're thinking if this is something that might work for you, I would invite you to apply to work with us. The thing is, we work with authors that match a few criteria. So first, you would have to have a series with scaling potential. This means a series that is at least 8 to 10 books or more ideally. If it's 15 or 20, then this is pretty much a no-brainer that we can help you with. And also, it's important that you have to have high read-through. So 60% of the revenue, 80% and 90%. So 60 from book 1 to book 2, 80% from book 2 to book 3, and 90% onward. And also, you have to be serious about growing your author business, and you are willing to get marketing off your plate, because we do take over all marketing aspects. Now, here's what's going to happen when you apply. So there's going to be a link here somewhere, a button where you're going to click and you can apply. So you're going to be asked to answer a few questions. So you're going to fill in a short application form. This is for us to understand if this is something that we can help with or not. And if it's a good fit, then you're going to be able to schedule a call. The goal of the call is to see if and how this would actually work for your book. So every different author, doesn't matter if you're a romance author, paranormal romance, mafia romance, mystery thriller suspense author, or fantasy romance authors, the marketing, as long as you can increase the first books in your series, like you can grow, it's different in terms of what you leverage to basically get this growth. So it's very important for us to understand, what you're selling, what your books are, and then what would be the best approach for you to scale your books. Now, this is important. So this is not for everyone. If you have less than 8 books, 6, 5 books, this is not a good fit for you. Like, it will be pretty impossible for us to scale you for you to make more profit, because the margins are a little bit too thin. So you have to have more than 8 books in a series, and you have to be currently advertising or ready to start. Ideally, you are advertising, and you have to have room and money to increase your spending. If you're very tight on your advertising money, then it's not ideal. Whenever we come in, we actually do increase the spend quite a bit. So that's an important piece of the puzzle. So if this is you, if you have more than 8 books, or you have longer series and you want to increase your revenue and get more readers in front of your books, then click the link below here somewhere and apply to work with us. You're going to have to fill in a form and then schedule a call to speak with me. So if this is not necessarily for you, or you know someone that might be a good fit for this, then I would really appreciate it if you can share this with them, so they can actually get familiar with what we've done, and then maybe they find something useful, or they are actually interested in scaling their business and we can help them. So share this with them if you know someone.